Hey, welcome back to the Catholic Coaching Podcast. We're continuing on with our points of awareness for the unique design pillar. Today we're focusing on weaknesses.
And why it's important for you to know your weaknesses. And I bet you didn't think this, but I know for me, to know my weaknesses frees me up.
Ooh, liberation is in this podcast waiting for you.
If you want to learn about that, stick around.
See you in there. Hey, folks.
Hi, welcome back. We're going to be talking about
All you weak ones out there.
weaknesses.
Mercy is for the weak.
I was saying to Matt, Matt's like, I like that color on you. And if you are not following us on YouTube, go follow us. What is it? Subscribe, click the bell, whatever you need to do.
Sounds good, Aaron.
I don't know what to ask for.
Such a good influencer.
I'm like, yeah, do the thing that you need to do.
Do the thing that you know how to do. Whatever the other people say.
Right before this, Matt was like, I like that color on you. And I was like, I kind of feel like I look like an inmate, which is very appropriate because today we're going to be talking about weaknesses.
Yeah, orange is the new black.
Yes.
Cool.
So, all right, guys, here is what we are talking about today. We are carrying on with our series on
Unique design, points of awareness, weakness being one of those things. We like giving these practical points of awareness because they are knowable, you guys, and just knowing these things, becoming aware of these different points that we're talking about here, they really does help you to get clarity on who you are, what your purpose is, and all those things that are getting in the way, our three pillars that we've got. And before we get started here, if you hear weaknesses and you're like, I don't want to listen to this, all you positivity people out there, it's like, I don't want to talk about my weaknesses. We all got them. There's beautiful things, and the beautiful things I love about weaknesses is it helps me to enter into a deeper relationship with people, which people that are high positivity usually like.
I actually love looking at my weaknesses.
Ooh,
and I'm high positivity.
You are. Number 6.
Yeah. So I mean, here's why I like to look at them. Because it gives me freedom to say no to things and to find and partner with people. But we'll get into that. Okay.
So that phlegmatic side of you that is always wants to say yes and tendency towards people pleasing, this actually equips you to kind of move away from that people pleasing.
Well, and also, I think there's that. But I also think that there is, I know that if I'm not good at doing something, I don't want to lie and say yes and be out of integrity and not give them a good result. So just knowing that my weaknesses, knowing my limitations, knowing that, all right, so here's an example. I hate doing calls or anything late at night because I just know my brain is like mush at that point. And even if I haven't worked all day, but most of the times it's when I work all day, but I'm like, look, I just want you to get the best result out of me. And so here's a limitation of mine. My brain is mush at night. So if you want me to speak to your people, let it be early in the morning. Actually, that's probably the best.
So it informs your ability to build some boundaries, claim some ideal conditions here even.
Be able to give a good gift and a gift that is in integrity with it. Okay.
Who doesn't want to be a good gift? Let's do it.
Let's get into this. Okay. So what is a weakness? A weakness, at Metanoia Catholic, we talk about it in a couple different ways. The last podcast, Matt challenged me on it, and you were right. We do talk about it in weaknesses as limitations. They're limitations, they're aptitude deficiencies, skill deficiencies, anything like that. And also vices. So character deficiencies of sorts. So they're both, but it's really helpful to know the distinctions, and we'll get into that in a little bit more depth later on this podcast. But they're areas of lack in our lives. They can also be overcome by virtue, by grace, by repentance, like if we're talking about the vices or the character deficiencies. But they also can be overcome by strategic partnerships and by skill development, by growing in acquired virtue.
Or even building a little bit more structure
Yes.
into your life to support, those areas of weakness.
Yeah. Benefits of knowing your weaknesses. Well, I just kind of shared a couple, but yeah, it helps my yes to mean yes and my no mean no.
Yeah, we can do a whole podcast that's going to be on how to manage your weaknesses. It's not going to be your focus today. You'll get some tips in terms of because we're going to be following our format of identifying 3 enemy strategies, 3 enemy lies that keep us from even looking at these weaknesses, growing in this points of awareness. So the enemy wants to keep these things hidden, or he wants us to be ashamed of these things.
Yes,
because,
exile them.
Yeah, exile these weaker parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
So that we don't come fully into relationship with the Lord, right? He wants all of it, even your weaknesses. And I know that Aaron's weaknesses are a gift to me in a lot of ways because they create space for me to show up and do what I do best and be a gift.
Your strengths, yeah.
And that's one of the things we're even getting into. So what are some of the benefits of this? It's like, you have some really beautiful, authentic relationships. John Paul II in Theology of the Body talks about the spousal analogy, where the complementarity of the spouses coming together, and even though that they're different, they come together into those differences enable a beautiful communion that can take place that's very fertile and life-giving, and where the 1 + 1 is not just 2 but 10, something greater than that.
I think also knowing your weaknesses is more practical, but like it helps you not say yes to like a job that doesn't fit you. You know, because weaknesses will really come to the surface if you're like saying yes to everything.
Yeah. So if we're being a little bit diagnostic for when you're not aware of your weaknesses, that's one of the first things is you end up saying yes, even to something which is like,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And usually behind that yes is like, I can figure out, because we grow up in a culture where it's like, you can do anything that you put your mind to.
Yeah.
And to an extent that is true, but you can't do everything excellently, and doing it isn't necessarily going to be life-giving to you when you do it. Right. So I think
another symptom is feeling drained. Because you're operating in your limitations and your frustrations most of your life. If you are saying yes to those jobs, or here's another thing. If you, like, let's just say you're a stay-at-home mom, right? God does qualify the called, right? If God is like giving you a child, he's going to qualify you. But you might be seeing somebody else's strengths and being like, that's a good mom. And like, this is how I need to do it. And so you're kind of looking at it from that angle. So you're comparing yourself to them.
And then there's a lot of judgment.
There's a lot of judgment, but also exhaustion from that place too.
Yeah, when Instagram mom is just like looking so happy, and maybe Instagram mom is authentically happy.
Yeah.
You know, making all of the beautiful snacks from scratch with completely organic foods and grown in her backyard, and purees her own baby food and stuff like that. And maybe that too. Maybe, but that is her living in her genius and living in her contributions and life-giving for her, because God designed her for that to be life-giving for her. But not every mom is designed that way. And this is where there's a lot of shame that can come in when there's these judgments and comparisons, and we're not holding space for our weaknesses.
There's also such freedom when you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Because it's going to be terrible, and I'm probably going to flip out at everyone, and I'll probably be a worse mom if I try doing that. You know?
Yeah. Oh man, when we got our baby Breza, that was cool. It was the baby Breza. Yes. Oh man, that was so simple. It was just like, okay, you're no longer like the breastfeeding just didn't work out. Sorry, she was a preemie. She was yeah. I wouldn't say that you're just a weakness because the breastfeeding didn't work out.
Yes.
That's okay. But like baby Breza came along, and this thing was like, what it was, the Keurig of baby formula making, and it was just like, I loved it. It was great. And so that was an example of putting some structure in place to accommodate for a skill deficiency.
Owning your weakness.
Yeah, we're just going to own this. Okay.
Yeah.
And then finally, just saying yes to everything.
Yes. I have a story about this.
The other piece. That's another symptom of not knowing your weakness, and saying yes to things that suck the life out of you.
Do you remember when we used to work at the church, and at all those meetings, like for like the events that we would do, I would say yes to everything, and then I'd be so frustrated after it, because it was like such a sanguine thing to be like, yes, let's do it, I'll do it.
So much hope. I can do it. I can figure it. Yes.
And then I would be like mean and terrible monster like after, and you were like, you need to stop saying yes to everything. Like we almost got divorced because of it.
Stop it.
But I remember you saying that to me, and then realizing, oh, I don't complete things. Just that is a limitation of mine. Like that is a frustration of mine, bringing something to completion.
Okay, I think this is like, I imagine if you work for a church, you volunteer at a church, you're probably nodding your head along, because I think the church is notorious for just putting warm bodies in places and say, hey, you can do it. Like, you volunteered over here.
Therefore,
and
you're good
great.
at this.
Therefore, you can do X, Y, Z and manage the finances of the church. And it's just, and
Yeah.
it's not in line with how God designed the body of Christ to be weak in areas and strong in other areas. And guys, like, I think that's operating from the scarcity mindset of, we don't have the volunteers, and so we have to just use the bodies that we have. And next thing you know, you start treating people as just bodies that you have. And next thing you know, we're objectifying. People are feeling worn out. People are feeling judged. People are feeling resentful. And nobody's actually growing in relationship with God. Nobody's growing in holiness. And they're having a very sour taste in their mouth.
High burnout.
With ministry. High burnout, yes.
There's a reason why.
We got to fix that.
There is a reason why.
This is a big part of the solution.
So I don't know if we've sold you on this, but if you're still a little hesitant to look at your weaknesses, we understand. The enemy has lied to you about your weaknesses. The world has lied to you. When we say the enemy, we mean like actual Satan and and the demons. And then also the world and the flesh. Like, there's different ways that these other enemies can lie to us. But there are these lies that kind of keep us from even looking at our weaknesses. Like I said, I'm like, there was so much freedom on the other side of saying, like, yeah, I'm not good at that. Like, I need help with that. But you might not be there yet. And so we're going to go through some of these common lies that we see people say to themselves or believe that keep them from even looking at their weaknesses and experiencing that freedom on the other side.
Yes, and with that freedom comes a deep, beautiful, intimate relationship with God as well.
Yep.
Right? When you can just hold that space in humility for the areas that he's created you with a genius, but also with some sort of deficiency, and to say, okay, this is the reality of what it is. And take authority. We're going to talk about taking authority for those things that are in your authority to grow and improve, but also just surrender the reality that you're not God. And you're not going to be the savior, and you're not going to be the epitome of goodness in all areas and strength in all areas of life.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's a reason why 2 Corinthians 12:9 is so helpful for me. My power is made perfect in your weakness. Therefore,
I boast in my weakness.
No, sorry. This is St. Paul talking to God. Your power is made perfect in my weakness. Therefore, I will boast in my weakness. And it's just, there's a completion. Like you were saying, you're brought into this really reliant relationship with the Lord, which is exactly where he wants us to be.
If we don't hold space for our own weaknesses, we will not hold space for other people's weaknesses, and we will judge other people for being weak, and we will put those heavy burdens on people and not lift a finger to help them carry them.
All right, let's do this.
Cool.
Lie strategy number 1, or lie enemy strategy number 1. There's just like a lot of words here. So
this one made me chuckle a little bit.
Won't focusing on my weaknesses make me feel discouraged and hopeless?
Chuckle.
Why did it make you chuckle?
Because it's the okay. Here's why it made me chuckle. But it's very common, and there's kind of like, you will feel a little discouraged.
Yeah.
And embrace that. Embrace that as part of like the humility, and like we can get past that. You're not stuck there. There's so much goodness on the other side of this that you're missing out on by trying to avoid that small little momentary experience of discouragement.
Right. So I'm glad that you said that. So there's discouragement, and there is also what this thought makes me think of as a mindset coach. I won't focusing on my weaknesses make me feel discouraged and hopeless. Well, okay. It's because there's an assumption underneath that, and you're not making distinctions. So there's like a couple of things going on here. So it's like there's an assumption that all weaknesses are moral defects. Like this means something about you, the fact that you aren't maybe good at something or whatever.
Yeah. So they need to be an actual source of shame. Like you should be ashamed of these things. Okay.
Well, you're getting into the next one, but yes. So there is something that is, there's like this so there needs to be a distinction. What kind of weakness is this? Because if I were just looking at a skill deficiency and I were telling myself, won't that lead to discouragement or hopelessness? Like, well, no, like probably not, because I know that other people, I have strengths that other people don't have, and I come in and fill in those gaps. So when you're actually making it into a moral defect or a vice when it isn't, that's like a big piece. So the first thing I would do as a coach, I would say, all right, what kind of weakness is it? Is it a skill deficiency? Is it an aptitude deficiency? Or is it a moral deficiency?
Yeah. There's the thought that's coming to mind as you're sharing this is like an appropriate application of despair. Right? In this case, right out the gate, when somebody's just like, well, won't I be discouraged? It's like, okay, well, won't I be stuck there? It's almost like, won't I just be absolutely powerless over that? And then I'll be discouraged and I'll despair and be frustrated. There's no hope that's there.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like hope is just necessary to kind of,
well,
or like an irrational despair is kind of what we're dealing with.
What I'm trying to do is look at the facts. So like, as if I was a lawyer, like being like, okay, tell me what kind of weakness this is. And then we can decide. And this is why having a coach, guys, is so helpful, because then the coach could go, we could decide if this is a moral defect or not. And then, but what you're saying is, okay, so let's just say it is a skill deficiency or an aptitude deficiency that you will never be good at. Let's just say like, somebody is saying like, I'm really despairing because I will never be good at, keeping the books of our business. Whatever. I'm not despairing about that, but let's just say I am. As a coach, I would say, okay, first of all, first step is you come to acceptance that this is the case. And now here's another thing. You go about and maybe find somebody to fill in that gap. So you strategically partner. The reason why I'm saying these distinctions need to be made up front, because it actually influences the steps that you take after.
Okay. So we want to categorize the weakness first, because that will inform the strategy that we take in moving forward, whether we're going to accept and move on and find other ways of partnering or stuff like that, or if we're actually going to say, no, there's actually something that I can do to remediate this so that it's no longer like I'm not stuck here.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So that's the first step that needs to happen. You have
Either way is a hopeful way forward, mind you.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. And even if it is, the hopeful way forward is acceptance first. Like it's still way better than you like shaming yourself and being afraid of feeling discouraged and hopeless moving down.
It's very humble, and that humility is going to lead to modesty in terms of like how you approach your life. Like a modest expectation for what your ideal life looks like is going to be tempered by that humility.
Yeah.
Cool.
So let's just say we'll put in a couple of examples here. Let's just say somebody comes to me and they're like, I'm afraid that I'm going to look at this weakness and I'm going to feel discouraged or whatever. I would go, okay, what is it? What type of weakness is it? Is it a moral weakness? Is it a vice?
Okay.
Is it a aptitude weakness? Like something that you never want to be good at, even like something that you're
doing the books? Yeah.
Yes. Or is it a skill deficiency too?
Which is just remediated by knowledge and somebody
practice.
teaching.
Yes.
Practice. Okay. Got it.
So from that point, if they go, oh, yes, it's a moral deficiency, then I would go, okay, here's the strategy. We need to repent, A. B, we need to look at the last time that you fell into this thing. We need to look at the thoughts and the emotions that led to it. If you guys are like, oh my gosh, like maybe you're taking a lot of notes. I don't know. You definitely want to go work with a coach to do this. Okay. And so then I would invite them to come and work with one of our coaches at the academy that we actually train people to do this. All right. The second one, if it is a aptitude deficiency, okay, the strategy for that would be acceptance. And then also asking, hey, do you even want to be good at this? Right. And then, okay, let's find somebody to come in and fill in the gap. Let's find a strategic partnership. Let's find a program that could come in and fill in this gap. Let's find something that fills in this gap.
Yeah, or even some structure. Say if you have to operate in this area of weakness, there's ways of building some structure that kind of lessen the effects of that. For example, I know Erin, she shares a lot, and like an aptitude deficiency is putting processes in place. Okay. So she's high ideation. She can come up with a lot of great new content ideas, but then what happens is she just kind of throws it up on a paper and then she passes it off to people that have to take that and put it into action, and we don't know what to do with it because all our ideas are all over the place. And so me leaning, it's like a way that we've built some structure to kind of mitigate the effects of that weakness of her in terms of the lack of the discipline and the process, but also make it so that we can unlock and experience her genius in the new content development and new ideas, is to literally just create a template.
Yes.
For her to put her ideas down that categorizes them, and then we know how to read. We know how to translate from Erin brilliance into actionable operational genius.
And that's an example of a strategic partnership. Somebody coming in
and structure.
And structure. Yeah. Okay. And then if it is a skill deficiency, you can go, okay, is this something that I can learn that is knowable, learnable, and I can grow in this skill? An example of that would be coaching. Right? Like coming through our coach training. Like we have said like over and over again, this is a skill that you have to learn. And this is why we do drills. And it becomes like this muscle memory inside your mind. But a lot of people have come to us and being like, can I ever become a coach? Like if I don't have all the raw material to become a coach? And we say it is a skill that you can learn. So just like anything else out there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So that would be my counter strategy for all three of those because they're all different scenarios.
I understood that.
Yay.
I hope you guys did too. I thought that was really awesome. I love that you gave the 3 categories because you gave a process, Erin. Aha.
Maybe it is a skill I can learn.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe God's grace is working through your bottom 5 right now. So we have the 3 categories, and then there's 3 different processes that we have there. Awesome,
Yep.
awesome. Love it. Okay. What's
and
next?
once again, I'm going to say, go work with a coach if you're like head is spinning and you're like, I want help with this. Okay. Anyway.
It's not good for the man to be alone.
That's right. Lie strategy number 2. Enemy strategy. This is, I should be good at this right away. All right. So there's like, I'm going to approach this in 2 different ways, actually in 2 different steps, part 1 and part 2. It's a small sentence. It's a short sentence relatively, but they both kind of pack a punch, both parts of this sentence. The first one is, I should be good at this. And then the second one is right away. So first one I'm going to talk about is, I should be good at this. As a coach, the minute I hear the word should, my coaching brain goes,
Danger.
And it always leads to shame, whether you are shoulding or shaming on somebody else, or you're shoulding on yourself and shaming yourself. In this case, you're shaming yourself. I should be good at this. Okay. But when we feel ashamed, here's something I want you to consider. When we feel ashamed, what do? We probably don't run and try to be better at something. It's not very compelling. Should always leads to you shame. Should always leads to shame, and shame always leads to you hiding. There's some type of hiding. There's some type of beating yourself up. There's something like that. So I don't want to say always. This is a side note. There is a virtue of shame. Okay? Shame will move you to do something. In
repentance.
In the virtuous way, it's repentance. Amen. Yes. But what we often see is that people will go beat themselves up and they will hide from this emotion of shame. Also, side note, if you were to listen to this, I should be good at this, or Matt, you should be good at this. If somebody else said that to you, what is that tone? I feel very condemning. I'm not like crazy about the tone. Even if we could say it's true that you should be good at this, like, it's kind of like when you're talking to your teenager. We don't have teenagers, but I'm just guessing when you're talking to your teenager. Yeah, that's true, but I don't like your tone kind of thing. Like that's kind of how we're responding to this.
Yep.
But I Another thing is I think we think this is useful when we use the word should with ourselves as if it is compelling us into action, into fruitful action. But in this case, like this isn't really fruitful action. We are not learning how to do this thing that we want to do. We are not open to learning how to do this thing because we're too busy hiding and beating ourselves up from this emotion of shame. Guys, emotions are so huge. I'm going to be talking about them a little bit more throughout this time, but they incline us to act or not act. And so we have to be mindful of the thoughts that we're thinking, the words that we're thinking, what emotions that's creating, and then really like what actions we're doing from those emotions.
Yeah, because I don't think, Aaron, you're saying eradicate should from your vocabulary across the board.
Be intentional about it.
It's really assessing the fruits and looking at what's behind it and what's the impact. And we see more often than not that should is one of those words that, like you said, it's leading to shame, and shame does not get us into action. More likely, it's getting us into just the hiding, right?
Yes.
And then,
Yep. And part 2 of this thought, so the should part, okay, I think we might be in agreement. Should is probably not the best like emotional fuel to like get me into action and actually learn how to do this thing that I want to be good at. If that is the strategy moving forward too, basing this off of the first slide.
right.
But that right now section, so remember the whole thought was, what was it? It was, I should be good at this right now. Okay. Think about that. Think about when somebody says something to you like, do this right now. What emotion does that create in you? Urgency, fear, almost like this like rushing type of action. I think it creates unnecessary urgency that we are placing on ourselves because, guys, if we are believing these, that means we are saying we're in agreement with them. Even if it is presented to us from the enemy, we're in agreement with it.
Well, yeah, oftentimes it creates more shame because it puts an undue burden or undue expectation or unrealistic expectation on us, right? And we see this often where, guys, especially with social media, we see a lot of this because oftentimes people are hopping on social media, like these big influencers with all the 100,000 followers, because they've grown in expertise over years. They weren't overnight successes. There's the 10,000 hours that they put in behind the scenes to really build up that brand, and suddenly now they're an ideal. But we miss the journey to come to that place, and we think it needs to be instant just because where do these people come from? They've got this figured out, and we end up dismissing a part of our humanity, which God designed us to learn and grow slowly over time, and that's okay. All right. In the moment we put that right now expectation, we dismiss a part of our own humanity, and that's going to have negative effects.
Yeah. And when you put these two together, the shame and then the right now, right? Like you put that, I should be doing this better.
Oh, it's so demotivating.
It's so demotivating. And it's like really what you're doing from that is you're rushing to beat yourself up. You're rushing to hide. Like those are the actions that come from that little combo. And it seems actually from an outsider point of view until you kind of break down, okay, what emotion is this leading to? And what are these fruits that it's actually leading to? We look at these and we call these pretty thoughts. Like this looks good. This looks compelling. But it's not. It's like opposite.
Well, it leads. It's again. It focuses on the gap, not the gain. It focuses on everything that you haven't accomplished yet, that you still need to accomplish to hit this dream, to hit this ideal, and there's zero celebration of the growth that you've had already and what God is doing in your life. It robs you of gratitude. It robs you of a trust in the Lord, and it keeps us from really moving into a deeper relationship with the Lord. It's a good strategy by the enemy. It works.
Yeah.
It works.
So our counter strategy is wordplay. That's one of my favorite drills in our coach training. So if you're interested in coach training, we have a brochure. But
CatholicCoaching.com.
Side note.
Check certification if you want to learn if this has had some sort of impact on you, or if you're curious about this. First of all, get coached. Like that's always step one. If you want to dip your toe in the water of what it looks like to be a coach yourself, get coached. But then you can go check out our brochure here as well over on our certification page on our website.
Yeah.
Cool.
So here's the counter strategy that happens. Instead of using the word should, you just switch out the word should with I choose to be good at this. What I like about that is that you actually start to ask yourself, do I choose to be good at this? Do I even want this at that point? And then we start to see, okay, why am I putting this undue pressure on myself and placing this shame on myself when I don't even really want to do this? There's guys, this happens all the time. We place these like parameters, these standards on ourselves, and then we realize I don't even really want to do this. Or if you do want to continue to do it, why? That compelling reason, that why will be the driver, not the should, not the right now. The why will be the driver for that.
Yep.
Also ask yourself if you're finding yourself say right now, do this immediately, do this right now. Part of me thinks, is it Mark who always uses the word immediately in the Gospels?
I don't recall.
Pardon me. I wonder if he's an activator. He's high activator. Anyway, but like this right now, go like just pause and say, what is the rush? Like you were saying, Matt, like it takes years to build up these things. It takes years to grow in a skill. It takes years to actually like even accept your weaknesses.
And even mature in any sort of relationship as well. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, nothing else I want to. I really like that. That choose is a very subbing in that word choose. What it does here, folks, is it gets your will engaged, and then it gets your intellect, like Aaron said, looking down and saying, do I really want this?
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Third and final strategy we have for the enemy keeping us from exploring our weaknesses.
Okay. I cheated a little bit because this is kind of like, it's not a long sentence, but it's a 3-parter.
I'll allow it. It's going to trigger my discipline.
I have to get over this by myself, but it seems impossible. Okay. When it comes to your weaknesses, I have to get over this by myself, but it seems impossible. The by myself is usually not spoken out loud. We don't usually say that, but that's usually in there. There's so many times when we take people even through emotional processing. That's one of our drills. Another one of our drills from our certification. But the turning point of emotional processing, it's called emotional processing with Jesus. And the turning point is almost always people going, I realized that I was thinking I was alone and I wasn't. And they realized that Jesus was with them. But that's almost always like the most powerful part of this emotional processing.
Yeah, even when they thought they were hiding in shame and they were by themselves, when they see the Lord in that place.
Yes.
Right? Where they feel ashamed, they feel most unlovable. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That is powerful. It transforms that place.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of talked about the by myself piece, but I'm going to break this down again.
With my by myself. Obscure Saturday Night Live reference there.
And I'm Donnie's. Okay. So we're going to split this up into 3 parts. The first part is I have to get over this. Matt, can you tell me as a mindset coach what is wrong with that statement?
I have to get over this. As soon as I hear I have to, there's a part of me that goes, no, don't.
No, you don't.
So like it's something that
And by the way, we have that same thing that happened in our own brain.
Yeah. So there's an imposition that's there, and it's an arbitrary imposition, because the reality of it is you don't have to get over it. And as soon as you put in a false imposition on yourself, it's not true. Your brain is wired for truth. Your intellect is wired for truth. It's going to start to look for all the reasons why you shouldn't have to do it, or it's wrong for having to do it. And that's not helping you. So it's just not helping you.
And we're also wired as humans to actually preserve our free will. So the minute our free will is challenged or threatened in any way,
imposed upon,
we will say, no, I don't. Like the minute, even if we are saying it to ourselves, I have to do this. There's a huge part of our brain that goes, no, you don't. And we're not going to do it. On principle.
Not true. Okay.
On principle. But also, guys, once again, this, I have to get over this. Like, it leads to terrible emotional fuel.
And what it also does is have to get over this. It's like this. The question I want to ask is,
What is this?
Or else.
Yeah.
What is this? And then what happens if you don't get over this? Like, why is this such a terrible place to be? Why can't this just be where you are right now? And we can kind of accept that, and we can say, okay, this is just where I am right now. So now accepting that, when you move, where there's such a rejection of where you're at, it's not present, it's not humble.
Yeah.
And what it does is it leads to a Pelagianistic approach, a bootstrapping approach to by myself, I'm going to get out of this. And you kind of start to adopt that attitude. I have to be fit before I go to the gym. So it's dismissing that part of our humanity, the way that God designed us to learn and grow over time, not instantly, but over time.
Yeah.
And the beautiful part about that is it requires us to enter into a deepening relationship with the Lord in order for the growth to actually happen and stick over time.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's great. It also leads to powerlessness when you do create that imposition on yourself.
Powerlessness, rebellion.
Which never leads to fruitful action. It's like such it becomes like this a fracture inside of your mind.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it's like you have these two opposing belief systems. I have to do this. Yes, that's compelling. I'm compelling myself. And then like the other parts of your brain are like, no, stop telling us what to do.
And notice like what happens from that. You're not engaging any of those three strategies that you talked about in the beginning.
Yes.
Like that.
Do I have to do
the
this?
Acceptance, engaging the will, choosing to go forward. Yep.
And also, do I have to do this? Or could I actually just ask somebody else to do this?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so by myself, many of us, like I was saying, don't say this out loud. But are you 100% by yourself too?
Mm-hmm.
Like, also ask yourself that. Like, is this 100% true? Could I be wrong about this?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I do have a team of people to help me with this. Maybe I do have the Lord that I could speak to about this. Maybe I do have... I don't know. So like maybe you're not by yourself. That's just something I want to challenge.
Yeah. And I mean, this is something where I recognize, sort of personal story, recognizing a weakness in myself in terms of just a knowledge gap to really across the board have that deep knowledge that you get when you get your master's or doctorate in psychology. Right. And so, but knowing how helpful that would be in the work that we do. But also knowing that in my state in life that God is not calling me to go back and get a second master's and a doctorate in those areas. Mm-hmm. And for a while, it was just like I was just stuck. I was putting this expectation on myself that I needed to have this knowledge. So it wasn't really leading to this humble place of acceptance. And there was a lot of shame that was associated there. And there was a lot of what was happening was I would feel rejected by people that did have this knowledge or they were in this community. And there was a great healing where I started to actually enter into a relationship with some people that had gone down this path and they were willing to kind of just share this expertise. There was just something that was just really, it was called a skill deficiency, maybe an aptitude deficiency, more skill, I would say.
Yeah.
But just being able to accept it and say it's okay. So not having this knowledge closes some doors for me, but it also opens some opportunities for partnership. And I've started to see that and the hope that's in that. And with these relationships, build out the referral relationships, build out the collaborative opportunities to work together and really form a robust vision of human formation.
Yep.
With people like, Dr. Jerry Crete.
And that makes
Father
it better.
Boniface
Makes it so much
Ruth
better.
on his team. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's much richer.
I was just coaching some of the coaches on this too. And it's like a nuanced way of saying by myself, but like almost this, it has to be all me. Like I have to be the one to do all this. I was just coaching a couple coaches on this. And one of the coaches was like, I don't do the nutrition side of it. I don't, but like I help with the mindset. I help with the emotions and all that. That's how we train them. And I said, well, do you know people who do that? Like similar to your situation, do you know people, like, does it have to be you that knows all of that stuff? I mean, here's the thing. You could develop that. You could learn that.
Yeah.
But like not tomorrow. So like, does it have to be you who knows all that? Or could you just be that networker and connect them to those people? And in the meantime, you help them with their mindset and their emotions around it,
Which is pretty doggone helpful.
which is like, I think the most helpful thing, but
Doggone it.
yes.
Cool.
So anyway, yeah. Okay. And then the third part of this sentence, this lie, and I'll read the whole lie off again. I have to get over this by myself, but it seems impossible. But it seems impossible. This will always lead to despair. When we use the word impossible an impossible is what I would call a universal word. Like, it's impossible, right?
There's no way. Yep.
There's no way. It's a universal claim, but like what you're doing is you're putting a universal word on a particular in this way.
And sometimes in that particular situation, it is impossible.
Yes.
And so therefore the despair is appropriate.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's appropriate and it's honest, and it's something that is going to lead to the growth in humility.
Yeah.
Which is good. And,
Yes.
and more modest objectives that are appropriate to your state in life and appropriate to God's will and how he designed you and what he asks of you and what he's gifted you with. Yep.
Yeah. And I also think, so the strategy here against this one, this part, like, but it seems impossible, is look at the facts. Is it impossible? And in this case, overcoming a weakness is overcoming this particular weakness. Like Matt was saying, like, is it appropriate to be despairing and then just accept it? Like, I just don't want to, like, even down the line, I don't want to ever learn how to do the books. I could probably grow in that skill and efficiency in that area. I just don't want to do it.
That comment just generated so much despair in me on your behalf.
Which is very appropriate. Like, that you feel despaired that I would want to ever do the books. Right. Yikes. And then I would also say that out loud. Right.
We're already bankrupt.
So exactly. So what was I saying? Okay. Facts. Look at the facts.
Appropriate level of despair.
Yep. But also look at the facts. Is this something that you've overcome in the past? Have you overcome other weaknesses in the past? Look at your own story. Look at other people's stories.
And looking at the facts, I think what that can do is it can kind of temper the inappropriate despair and then create space for fortitude to move forward, because you may say, yeah, it's possible, but it's going to be hard. Okay. Now we need to, then it's just like, okay, are you still willing to do it? Yes, I want to do it. Now we need to grow in the fortitude, which is that virtue that is going to help you to engage what is arduous. It's one of those, what is the irascible?
Yes. Fortitude is a...
Look through the wheel.
Right there. Yes.
Courage, fortitude,
Yes.
irascible. Thank you.
Yes. Overcoming obstacles.
You're engaging a good that has... there's challenge in front of you, right? And so there's an opportunity to grow in fortitude there. But when we're using that universal term impossible, when it's not appropriate, we're robbing ourselves of an opportunity to grow in fortitude. And we're slipping into the opposite virtue or vice, which is more of a pusillanimity or a smallness of soul.
It's just abdication.
Yep.
Of what the Lord might be calling you into as well. Okay. Also, side note, here, what was I going to say? Oh, I'll give you an example. I quit smoking years ago, and I remember thinking this seems impossible to quit smoking, and I had a lot of evidence to support it. People were like, nicotine, addiction is probably the hardest thing to quit.
How many years were you smoking? Like
A
regular
lot.
smoker?
A lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was years.
It was almost 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years. Yep.
And now, because I quit, I look back on, and anytime my brain wants to throw at it, this is impossible. I'm like, wait a second. I quit smoking. And that's just like one example, right? Wait a second. I get up at like 5 o'clock every morning. That was never the case.
Willingly.
Willingly, and liking it,
And not making other people pay for it for the rest of the day.
I used to think that was impossible too.
Until about 8 o'clock. But go ahead.
So you can look back on your life. You can kind of shed light on, areas that you have overcome certain weaknesses. And that is it that we have for you guys today.
I
So
dig it. Okay. So if we haven't convinced you guys, taking a look at those weaknesses, it's a point of it's worthwhile. It's a beautiful, liberating experience that really begets humility.
and it frees you up to live in your strengths.
Thank you. Yeah. And your strengths are kind of those geniuses that God has given you to, he's just saying, hey, I want to pour grace into this person in a very particular way in these areas of strength and contribution. You get to experience what it feels like to be a gift, which really is a full maturation of what it means to be human, right? We go from self-awareness to self-mastery to self-gift. If we're following John Paul II's personalism here, what a beautiful thing. If we had everybody knowing what their gifts were and then choosing to willingly offer those gifts to other people, that's what we want to see more of at Metanoia Catholic. And that's what we're helping people to do in our Academy Plus. So we want to invite you to become a new gift every 30 days in Academy Plus, growing practical skills, but also some of these points of awareness, growing these points of awareness every 30 days. That's a huge win here, folks, because that awareness is going to equip you to become more who you are, discover and engage your unique mission, and then be very keen on those unique battle things that are getting in the way. And we're going to be better parents. We're going to be better spouses, better coworkers, better evangelists, better priests, across the board, better educators, when we are growing in these three pillars and all the points of awareness that go along with it. It's simpler than you think, and it's amazing happening within a community. And you have people that are growth-minded, that are cheering you along and encouraging you within the community here. So check it out, guys.
Come join us.
Join us in Academy Plus.
It's so much fun.
Cool.
Bye.
See you, team. Hey, thanks for sticking with us in the Catholic Coaching Podcast. If you like what you heard,
Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.